My girlfriend, 37F, keeps feeding me 39 mems junk food, despite knowing how hard I'm trying to get in shape. How do I handle this? So I just threw another cake in the bin. This is getting ridiculous. It was a chocolate fudge cake this time, topped with strawberries and whipped cream. The kind that once would have been my guilty pleasure, but now it just looked like another roadblock to my progress. This is the third time this week I've had to do this, and I feel myself sliding into frustration, maybe even anger. This is a weird situation I'm in. I haven't been in it before, and I really hate it. I've been dating my girlfriend Ava for about 4 years now, and for the most part, it's been great. She's funny, smart, and supportive. Well, supportive of almost everything but my health. I was once an active guy. I played sports, went hiking, hit the gym at least 4 times a week, and could run 10 miles without blinking. Now, just walking up a few flights of stairs makes me feel winded, and I'm constantly tired. I feel like I'm slowly losing control over my own body. For the past year, I've been trying to get back in shape, but Ava keeps feeding me junk food. It's not like she means to sabotage me. At least, I don't think so. She just loves food. She grew up in a big family where food was love, comfort, and celebration, all rolled into one. So, when she pops over to my place with a surprise pizza or orders McDonald's, she's showing me affection, not realizing how much it's derailing me. Even though I cook most of my meals, there's always a moment where she'll bring over a cake or something equally indulgent. It's happened enough times that I've started dreading her surprises. And every time, we have the same conversation. Ava, I'm trying to lose weight. You know my doctor said I need to get healthier. I'll say, my voice a mixture of frustration and guilt, because I don't want to hurt her feelings. She'll shrug with a cheeky smile. It's just one meal. Come on, live a little. But it's not just one meal. It's been hundreds of just one meals over the past year. And now, for the first time in my life, I'm actually scared about my health. My willpower isn't amazing, I admit that. I've tried so hard to get back on track, but every time I'm left to my own devices, I do fine. Without Ava, I stick to my routine, but with her, it's like my whole plan crumbles under the weight of a pizza box. Wow, I didn't expect the overwhelming response to my post. So many of you offered kind words, advice, and some tough love. And you know what? You were right. I needed to take control of the situation, and that meant having a serious conversation with Ava. So I did. We were sitting in the living room, the half-eaten remains of a fast food dinner on the coffee table. It was the perfect moment to talk, because I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine while I was feeling worse and worse about myself. Ava, we need to talk, I started, trying to keep my tone calm but serious. She looked up, her fork halfway to her mouth. What's up? I took a deep breath. It's about the food. I know you love surprising me with treats, but I need you to understand that it's really affecting me. I've gained weight, I'm constantly tired, and my doctors told me I need to get healthier. I love that you care about me, but the way we're eating isn't good for me. And it's not just about the food. It feels like you're not supporting my goals. Hey everyone! If you've ever found yourself struggling to stick to healthy habits while balancing relationships, this story is for you. It's not easy when someone you love unintentionally derails your progress, but I want to know, what's your experience? Have you faced similar challenges? Drop a comment below and let's have a real conversation about how we can support each other. If this resonates with you, make sure to subscribe for more honest, real-life stories of personal growth. Together, we can learn, grow, and keep each other motivated. Ava put down her fork, her face softening. I could see the gears turning in her head. I didn't realize it was that serious. I thought it was just, fun stuff we did together. It used to be, I admitted. But it's become a problem. I need to get back in shape. I'm not just trying to fit into old jeans here. I'm worried about my health, and I need your support. The silence stretched between us, and I braced myself for an argument. But Ava surprised me. I guess I've been selfish, she said, her voice quieter than usual. I love sharing food with you. It's something we always did. I never thought about how it might be hurting you. Her words hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't sabotaging me out of malice. She was holding on to something that made her feel close to me. I get that, I said, softening my tone, but we need to find a way to be close without destroying my body in the process. We talked for a long time that night, longer than we had in months. By the end of it, Ava promised to help me, and not in the vague, half-hearted way she had before. She wanted to be healthier too. She suggested we start cooking meals together, ones that were good for both of us. And, surprisingly, she even agreed to go to the gym with me. I didn't see that coming, but I guess she realized this wasn't just about me. It was about us. So, for the first time in months, we hit the reset button. We purged the fridge, tossing out all the processed garbage that had become a staple in our kitchen. I have to admit, there was a part of me that thought we'd both crumble at the first whiff of fast food. But we didn't. A week later, we had stuck to our plan, and Ava was keeping up her end of the bargain. No more surprise cakes, no more late-night pizza orders. Instead, we spent our evenings chopping vegetables, experimenting with new recipes, and making smoothies that, while not as indulgent as a Big Mac, actually tasted pretty damn good. And you know what? Something incredible happened. Hey everyone! If you've ever struggled with sticking to healthy habits or had someone you love unintentionally derail your progress, I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and share your experiences. Let's support each other on this journey. And if you're enjoying these real-life stories of transformation, hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on more relatable content like this. Together, we can keep each other motivated and moving forward. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you stay in the loop. I started feeling better. Like, really better. Not just physically, but mentally too. My energy levels spiked, my mood lifted, and for the first time in ages, I felt like I was in control again. Ava noticed it too. "You're like a new person," she said one evening as we took a walk around the neighborhood, something we hadn't done in forever. "I feel like one," I replied, smiling for real this time, not out of obligation, but because I was proud of myself, and proud of Ava too. This wasn't easy for her. She had to give up something she loved, food as a comfort and a connection. But she did it for me, for us. Of course, not everything was perfect. There were moments of temptation. The smell of a bakery would hit me as we passed by, and I'd catch Ava glancing at me with that mischievous look that once meant, "Let's get a treat." But now it was different. She'd squeeze my hand and keep walking, silently telling me she was in this with me. But then, something happened that I wasn't prepared for. One night, after a particularly stressful day at work, Ava came home with a bag of takeout. It was from our favorite burger place, the one we used to go to all the time. I felt my heart sink. We'd been doing so well, and here she was, bringing temptation right back into our lives. I didn't want to fight, but I was frustrated. "Ava, what is this?" She looked at me, and for the first time in weeks, I saw that familiar flicker of guilt in her eyes. "I had a terrible day," she said softly. "I needed something comforting." There it was. The comfort. The old patterns creeping back in. And suddenly, I realized that this wasn't just about food. Ava was using it to cope with her emotions, and now I was starting to see the real struggle. There it was. The comfort. The old patterns creeping back in. And suddenly, I realized that this wasn't just about food. Ava was using it to cope with her emotions, and now I was starting to see the real struggle. This wasn't just about her wanting to sabotage me. It was about her needing something familiar when everything else felt overwhelming. I took a deep breath, biting back the frustration that had been rising in me. "Ava, I get it. I really do. But we talked about this." She sat down at the table, her shoulders slumped. I know. Work was awful today, and I didn't know what else to do. I felt like I needed something to make me feel better." I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the weariness that went deeper than just a bad day at work. It was like she was carrying something heavier than she was willing to admit, and for the first time, I realized how much she had been holding inside. I wasn't the only one struggling. Ava had her battles too, and she was trying, but sometimes trying just wasn't enough to keep the old habits at bay. I sat down next to her, reaching out to take her hand. "Look, I get that it's hard. We're both used to turning to food when things get tough. But we've been doing so well, and I don't want us to slip back into old patterns. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can keep this up. It's so much easier to just fall back into what I know. I squeezed her hand. We don't have to be perfect. We're going to mess up sometimes. But the important thing is that we keep moving forward. Together. She looked down at the takeout bag, then back at me, and I could see the internal struggle playing out on her face. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she stood up, took the bag, and walked over to the trash. With a deep breath, she tossed it in. I'm not going to lie, she said with a shaky smile. That hurt more than I thought it would. I chuckled, the tension between us dissolving a little. We'll make something healthy instead. Something that won't make us feel like crap afterward. That night, we made a simple stir-fry with vegetables and brown rice. It wasn't gourmet by any means, but it was satisfying, and more importantly, it felt like a small victory. But the cracks had started to show, and I knew that our journey wasn't going to be a straight line. There would be moments of doubt, moments of weakness, and moments where the comfort of old habits would try to lure us back in. The roller coaster. The next few weeks were a roller coaster. Some days, Ava and I were in sync, cooking healthy meals, going to the gym, and cheering each other on. Other days, I could see her slipping, her energy flagging as the pressure of work and life weighed her down. And I wasn't immune to it either. There were nights when the stress of my job made me crave something greasy and indulgent, and it took every ounce of willpower to stay on track. One particularly bad day for me came when I had an awful meeting at work. My boss had chewed me out over a project that wasn't even my fault, and by the time I got home, I felt like I was going to explode. Ava was already there, looking as worn out as I felt. I don't know if I can do this anymore, I blurted out as I dropped onto the couch, my head in my hands. Ava sat down next to me, her expression concerned. What do you mean? I just wanted to feel good, even if only for a little while, she whispered, her voice breaking. I stood there watching her, realizing for the first time how deep this ran. It wasn't just about the food, the late-night pizzas, the cakes, the burgers. It was all a way for her to soothe something bigger, something we hadn't really addressed until now. I sat beside her and placed my hand on her back, rubbing gently. Ava, it's okay to feel stressed. It's okay to have bad days. But using food like this, it's not going to fix anything. We can figure out other ways to cope. Together. She looked up at me, her eyes red from holding back tears. I know, I don't want to keep doing this, but it's so hard to stop. I nodded. I get it. Trust me, I do. But we can find other ways, healthier ways. Maybe it's time to look into talking to someone about this. Maybe a therapist or counselor. It's not something you have to handle alone. The silence that followed was heavy. I wasn't sure how she would take the suggestion, but after a moment, she nodded slowly. Maybe you're right. I've been holding so much in, and I've been using food to cover it up. It's just how I grew up, you know? My family always used food to deal with things. Celebrations, stress, sadness. It was all about eating. I squeezed her hand. It doesn't have to be like that for us, though. We can break that cycle, and if you're open to it, we can get help. I'll support you through this. She smiled weakly, a small glimmer of hope in her eyes. Okay, I'll try. For us. The next few weeks were challenging, but they were different. Ava started talking more openly about her stress at work, and we found other ways to deal with it, like going for walks, meditating together, and sometimes just sitting in silence and breathing. We even signed up for a couple's yoga class, which ended up being more fun than either of us expected. We laughed at how awkward we were at first, but it was a new way to bond, a new way to be close without relying on food. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were slip-ups. A stressful day would lead to a moment of weakness, and there were still a couple of nights where we caved and ordered something greasy. But we didn't let it spiral. We'd acknowledge it, reset, and keep going. And slowly, I started to see the change in both of us. Ava was more in control, and so was I. My energy was back, my mood stabilized, and my clothes fit better. More importantly, I felt like myself again. I wasn't constantly thinking about food or how to avoid it. It wasn't this looming presence in my life anymore, and that felt liberating. But then came another test, a big one. It was Ava's birthday, and her family wanted to throw a huge party. Her mom, who was famous for her lavish feasts, insisted on cooking everything herself. I knew what that meant. Tables filled with all the foods I was trying to avoid. Cakes, pies, fried everything. Ava's mom loved to show love through food, just like Ava did. We were driving to the party, and I could feel the anxiety building. Ava must have sensed it because she reached over and grabbed my hand. "Hey," she said softly. "We've got this. We don't have to overdo it. We can enjoy ourselves without going crazy." I looked over at her, surprised. She was the one calming me down now. It was a nice change, but I couldn't help but worry about how the evening would unfold. When we arrived at the party, the smell of fried chicken and fresh-baked bread hit me like a punch in the gut. I saw the buffet, the cakes, and the sugary drinks lined up, and for a moment, I felt like turning around and leaving. But Ava squeezed my hand again and smiled. "We're in this together," she whispered. As the night went on, I realized it wasn't about avoiding the food entirely. It was about moderation. Ava and I shared a small piece of her birthday cake, just one, and we enjoyed it. We filled our plates with the healthier options on the table, and when her mom pushed more food on us, we politely declined. It wasn't easy, but we made it through the night without falling back into old habits. And when we got home, instead of feeling bloated and guilty, we felt proud. Proud that we'd come this far, and proud that we could handle these situations together. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Ava turned to me. "You know," she said, "this was the first birthday where I didn't feel like I had to eat everything just to be happy. I actually enjoyed the company more than the food." I smiled, pulling her close. "That's because we've changed. We're changing." She nodded. "I think I'm finally starting to see that food doesn't have to control us. It's a part of life, but it's not life itself." Her words stuck with me. She was right. For so long, food had been the center of everything. Our comfort, our celebration, our escape. But now, it was just one piece of the puzzle. We were building a life together that wasn't defined by what we ate, but by how we lived, how we loved, and how we supported each other. Months passed, and things continued to improve. Ava found a new therapist who helped her work through some of the deeper issues she'd been carrying for years, and I continued to focus on my own health journey. I lost weight, sure, but more importantly, I gained clarity. I stopped feeling like a victim of my own cravings and started feeling in control again. Ava and I found new hobbies that didn't revolve around food. We hiked more, took weekend trips, and discovered a love for rock climbing, something neither of us had ever considered before. We even started meal prepping together, turning our Sunday afternoons into a bonding ritual where we cooked healthy meals for the week ahead. There were still tough days. Sometimes Ava would come home after a rough day, and the urge to order takeout would surface again. But now, instead of giving in, we talked about it. We'd sit down, acknowledge the feeling, and find another way to deal with it. Sometimes we'd go for a walk, other times we'd meditate, or just sit together in silence until the craving passed. One day, after a particularly long hike, we sat at the top of a hill, looking out over the sunset. Ava turned to me, her eyes glowing in the fading light. "I'm so glad we did this," she said softly. "Did what?" I asked. "Changed, fought for ourselves. For each other," she replied, leaning her head on my shoulder. I smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun. "Me too." In that moment, I realized that this journey was never really about losing weight or getting healthier. It was about taking control of our lives, about learning to support each other in ways that didn't involve self-sabotage. It was about growing together, learning together, and loving each other in a way that made us stronger. And as I sat there with Ava, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I knew that we were going to be okay. Not because we had everything figured out, but because we were willing to keep trying, keep fighting, and keep choosing each other every single day.